Hey, this is Isaac from Mammoth Electronics, and in this video we're going to look at the Line 6 DL4. It's a really popular pedal, tons of people use it, but people also have a lot of problems with it, mainly with the switches. And the reason being is that the switching system is pretty complex. You basically, here's your switch. You have to rely on this spring, this little plastic piece here, this plastic piece, and then the actual switch, all to work right for your switching system to do what it's supposed to do, which oftentimes it doesn't. So what we're going to do is replace it with just a very simple SPST switch, momentary switch, that we sell here at Mammoth Electronics, and it makes everything a lot simpler, a lot more reliable, and it's a pretty easy mod, so let's see how to do it. Alright, so here's our Line 6 DL4. Here's the switches, knobs, nuts, and we got to take all that off before we can do our mod here. So let's just start with the nuts on the back. Should come off pretty easy. Now the next part we'll do the knobs. Now this is almost the trickiest part of the whole modification, because these knobs, sometimes they are really on there. So what I like to do is get a small flat blade screwdriver and just stick it down in between the knob and the case. You kind of have to ply it up. So sometimes they're really tough, so sometimes you gotta really get in there and get them out. Other times they pop right off, which is good. But okay, now we'll take off some more screws. I've already removed the back plate. It's pretty simple, it's just 5 screws. The board has 4 screws and then a hex. And one trick I found with the hex, if you don't happen to have a hex, these adjustable screwdrivers, for some reason, if you take the bit out, that always seems to fit the hex screw. I don't know why, but it always seems to work pretty well. So now, our board should be able to come out of there. You gotta take the battery connectors out. So the board should slip out. And here are the switches that we're going to be replacing. These are actually the switch covers. So you take that off, there's your actual switch. So we'll remove those because we aren't going to need them anymore. And we'll go ahead and take the switch covers out here. Alright, so now our case is disassembled. And let's get these switches out. To get the switches out, I'm going to use a desoldering gun from Heiko, which if you don't have one of these, they're a lifesaver. They make this a lot easier because it's a through-hole switch. Desolder all 4 legs. And sometimes I've found that if you can't get all the solder out of there, just go through and clip the legs off. It makes it a lot easier once you've got the initial solder off to get the rest of it. There we go. Okay, now that we have our switches removed, we can wire up our momentary switch, which here is the momentary switch. This is the low profile version. It's a really sturdy switch. It'll last for a long time. Much more reliable than the setup we had going before. So, the way this works is basically on each switch, there's 4 pads. The bottom 2 are connected and they're ground. The top 2 are connected and they're the signal, I guess you could say. And basically all that happens is when that switch is depressed, it connects it to ground for a second, which causes the switching circuitry to do its thing. So all we have to do, since they're both connected, the tops are connected and the bottoms are connected, we only have to put 1 wire on each one, and 2 holes can remain empty because they're basically redundant for this. So we're just going to put 2 wires on each switch and wire them up to the 2 lugs on the switch. It doesn't really matter which one you use, since it's just a single pull, single throw switch. So it just connects and disconnects. So either wire can go into either lug. So let's do that. Alright, got our wires in our board. Now we'll attach them to the switches. So one last thing we got to do before we put this back together is that line 6 has as a guiding hole for their old switches. They have a little nub here, and we need to take that out so we can orient the switch in such a way that it will fit in there and miss the LED and everything like that. So you just got to get some clippers. It's pretty soft aluminum, so it should just clip right out of there. Alright, so now we've got those little notches removed. Now we can put our board back in. And we're just going to tighten down these switches real fast. So you got your switches in, and now we pretty much just go in reverse order of how we took it apart. Oh, actually, forgot there is one switch that needs to go a certain way. It's basically the switch on the play/stop the B channel, because there's a part on the board that sticks down a little farther. You actually need to orient that switch this way to get everything to fit right. All right, and there you go. Have 4 very reliable switches, and should only take you right around 30 minutes to an hour to do that whole thing. Pretty cheap to get you a much more reliable pedal. And cut.
Action.